Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for the Passion and Persistence podcast. I'm your host, Elaina Mitchell, and tonight's episode is a little bit different. I usually have a guest, but I wanted to take some time to just personally introduce myself, tell you a little bit about my story, my struggles, and my persistence to chase my passion. This is hard for me to share because I'm about to talk about some struggles that I wouldn't normally tell the world about. I've struggled in more ways than one, but I'm sharing this. I'm sharing the vulnerability. I'm sharing the rawness of my journey to remind you that you're not alone in your journey. You're not alone when you fall. You're not alone when you feel hopeless or lost. I've been there. I still go through it, and I'm sharing this story with you to remind you that I'm here for you. So without further ado, here's the 5th episode of the Passion and Persistence podcast. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for this episode of the Passion and Persistence podcast. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Elaina Mitchell, and I am usually just the host here on this podcast. But tonight I'm changing it up a little bit, and it's just going to be me having a discussion with you and letting you know what this podcast is all about, what it means to me, why I started it, and how I got here in both my personal and spiritual life and the business world, right? So let me give you guys a little backstory of who I am and why this podcast is so important to me. So I grew up in a very low-income family, to say the least. We had many struggles, but I never really saw it as a struggle while I was in those experiences. I saw it as a learning lesson or a way to get creative or make something out of nothing. So that was always my life growing up, finding ways to make cool games, make cool toys, come up with, exercises for our homeschooling, and little things like that kept me inspired, motivated, kept me thinking and problem solving. So that was always really important to me. Creativity became a huge part of my life because I didn't have much, but I always found a way to, again, make something out of nothing. As I grew older, I realized that I had a huge love for business, but I never really had anybody close to me in my life that was able to really guide me on that business path. I knew that I loved business. I knew that I wanted to start a business, but I was never really sure how to make that happen. So I had many small businesses throughout my entire life. Ever since I was really young, maybe 7 years old, I decided to start selling homemade book bags in my neighborhood. From there, we had lemonade stands with me and my sisters. We would invite neighborhood kids to join in on it and create like combo deals with Debbie cakes and a cup of lemonade. That eventually turned into bake sales. The bake sales eventually turned into door-to-door bake sales because not enough cars were going down our street. I started selling hand-drawn names in school. I started selling hand-painted clothing all throughout high school. So creating a business using my love for creativity was always in me, right? That's what I'm trying to explain. As I grew older, obviously we all run into problems, and that is where this entire idea of persistence comes into play. I knew my passion was creativity and design, but it didn't always work out the way I planned. It didn't always just fall into place, and that persistence is what always pushed me through to the other side of that mountain. So my mom ended up getting sick when I was a senior in high school, and she was sick a little bit before that, but she got really sick my senior year, and I never really took that seriously. Fast forward a few years, my first year in college, she ended up passing away. Now, I talked a little bit about this on a previous episode, discussing spirituality and business and how I was so positive that God was going to save my mom through this struggle of cancer. I was so optimistic about miracles. I had been praying vigilantly for her to be saved, and she ended up passing away. So that broke my heart. That was one of many obstacles I had to overcome. But it made me turn away from my love of creativity and design. It made me turn away from this internal desire to be a business owner, to create something out of nothing. And instead, I turned to vices like partying, going out with the wrong crowds, smoking weed, just getting in trouble with the police, so many things that I knew I shouldn't be doing, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't sure if there was a God at that point because he let me down, or so I thought, with that prayer to save my mom. So I went down a really bad path for a few years, and it wasn't until I became a mother, I found out I was going to be a mother, that I really was like, wow, time to get back on track. Elaina, what have you been doing? So long story short, I decided to start my business, Mitchell Designs. And during this process, I always had little odd jobs here and there. I worked at a florist for a little bit. I worked at a fabric company for a little bit. I worked at a health company for a little bit, just taking these jobs as a graphic designer to keep me afloat, take care of my son, and having my business on the side the entire time. However, there were many things that didn't go as planned that knocked me right on my butt financially. And that is where that persistence plays in. There are going to be so many things in your life that don't go as planned, and you're going to get scared. You're going to wonder, why is this happening to me? You're going to want to give up, because I've been there more times than I can even look back and try to count. But the fact of the matter is, being persistent through that struggle and continuing on the path and the vision you see in your head and the feeling you have in your heart of where you ultimately want to be is an amazing experience to get to the other side, because there's always light on the other side. The grass is greener on the other side when you're pushing through fear, when you're pushing through resistance and those roadblocks. That's the persistence that needs to come into play. I strongly believe that we all have passion inside. It's locked deep in there somewhere. There's something that lights you up inside, but it's not always going to be easy to uncover. It's not always going to be a clear vision to the path that you're ultimately supposed to be on. So I had all these odd jobs as a graphic designer, and my pride started getting in the way. I ended up quitting one of my jobs and got evicted from an apartment when my son was about 2 years old. Then things just went downhill from there. I ended up moving in with my sister, and I'm telling you guys this to help you understand I'm not perfect. I have fallen more times than probably anybody listening to this will ever have fallen, and I made so many mistakes, but I never gave up. I never stopped learning. I never stopped getting back up again. So I lost one of my jobs, or I quit actually, out of pride. I lost my apartment from that, and I had to move in with my sister. I had a little baby boy that I had to take care of, and jobless, broke. So I ended up taking a job at a fashion company. Worked there for a few months, thought it was going to be my dream come true job, everything I had been wanting in life, and found out they were scam artists. Brought it to their attention that I knew they were scam artists, and they tricked me, fed me a bunch of lies, let me go. And again, I was on my butt, flat broke, with no idea of which way to turn. And then I was expecting an income tax return check. When you have a child and you're as broke as I was, your income tax return checks are usually a little boost to get you back up on whatever path you're on or wherever you had fallen, right? So I was waiting on this income tax return check, living with my sister still, sleeping on an air mattress with my son, and I waited and waited, kept checking my phone for the notifications for this check, and got a notification. And my sister was on my butt. When are you going to get a place? Because she had kids of her own. She had a whole family in her little townhouse, and then me and my son were there causing a ruckus. I had a little wild, rambunctious 2-year-old, right? So this was a lot for her to deal with too. So she was on my butt. When are you going to get a place? When are you going to get another job? What's happening? And I kept promising her, this income tax return check is going to come. I'm going to use it to get a place and I'll be out of your hair. So waited patiently, kept checking my phone, checking my emails. And then I get an email that my entire income tax return check was taken for a defaulted student loan. It was $5,500 some dollars that I was expecting to use to get a place, taken for a defaulted student loan. And now I really felt like I had hit rock bottom. I felt like I had let my sister down. I let my son down. I had a dog at the time. I felt like I let my dog down. I felt like I let my whole family down. I felt like I let, obviously, myself down. And I literally cried out the loudest wail, the loudest cry of sorrow, and I fell to the ground. And I said, God, whatever it is you're trying to tell me, I am listening loud and clear. I'm obviously stupid, stubborn, and just disobedient to wherever it is you need me to be in life. And I laid on my sister's floor just crying and asking God for a second chance. That was really tough. I ended up moving to Clearwater after that. Got an opportunity there for a job at a health company. Got on my feet, got an awesome apartment, and still had my design business on the side, Mitchell Design. So I was making people's logos and websites on the side, working at this health company as a graphic designer, and making really good money for where I had just come from, right? So again, I let my pride get in the way. I let somebody make me feel a certain way at that company. And again, I made the same mistake and I left. And again, I lost everything. Had to move back home to Fort Lauderdale with my family that I didn't want to have to go back to. It had been a year that I had got on my feet and felt successful and felt confident, and bam, hit the ground again really hard. And that is when I was just like, no, I am not going to be defeated. I moved back in with another sister of mine and again felt like a loser, felt like a letdown, felt miserable inside for so many reasons, for making these same mistakes over and over again. But it was all for a bigger purpose, you guys. And these letdowns, these hard hits to the ground are going to shake you up enough inside to find that fire that you need to get back up again, to get back up stronger, to get back up with a better plan, to get back up smarter than you were before you fell. So I moved back in with another sister, stayed with her for a few months, and again, continued doing my business. Didn't end up getting a job anywhere else at this point. I was set on getting my business off the ground. So I invested $300 into getting a new website. I invested $500 into getting new videos created from other companies. I invested time and energy into building a system of how to attain new clients, what to say to these new clients, and slowly but surely, my clientele started growing. And it was time to leave the nest, to get out of my sister's hair, because again, this other sister had a family to worry about, and I was in her way with a rambunctious 3.5, 4-year-old at this point, right? So I ended up getting an opportunity in Clearwater for a small business gig, came here for a visit in Clearwater, and got lost in downtown St. Petersburg, where I am broadcasting this podcast from right now. I got lost in downtown St. Petersburg, and I got a little knock on my heart. That, in my opinion, was God. And it told me, this is where you need to be. So this is probably, the fourth or fifth time I had to get back up again, right? So I had some money saved, came to St. Petersburg, got another apartment, started bartending at night to make extra money, and again, networking, letting people know about my business. And this time I was not going to fail. So here I am, 7 months later, gained some of the biggest clients in downtown St. Pete. I now have an intern on deck as a social media intern. I now have a secretary on deck as a part of my team, and I'm learning slowly. But this process is long, you guys. So whatever point you're at in this journey, however many times you have fallen, I'm here to let you know that I'm right there with you. I feel you. I've been you. I am you. We are one in the same. If I can keep getting back up, you can keep getting back up. And I know this obviously isn't the end of my journey. There will probably be more lessons to learn. But the fact of the matter is, I am going to be persistent. I'm going to be passionate. And I am never going to stop. And I don't want you to either. I am here to inspire you, to motivate you, to help you bring your vision to life. I am here for you. I am here with you. And that is why I created the Passion and Persistence podcast, to not only tell my story of being passionate and persistent, but to tell other people's story. That I've interviewed people that are way older than me, that are way more successful than me, that are, accomplished entrepreneurs that own businesses, and they too have been in my shoes. They too have had hungry nights. They too have had to budget. They too have fallen multiple times. And if they too can do it, I can do it. You can do it. So I'm not here to put myself on a pedestal. I am still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still pushing forward persistently. But I am here to share, to give you light, to give you hope, because I truly believe that is a huge reason why I've been through so much in life. This little glimpse, this little story I told you, it's just bits and pieces of the millions of struggles I've endured in my 30 years of life. And I know there are other people out there that can relate. I always have said, the things that have happened to me in life are crazier than a movie script. You can't even write half of the things I've been through and experienced and witnessed and things people have done to me, right? But that movie script is writing an amazing story. Imagine how beautiful that ending to that story is going to be when you can say you never gave up. You never stopped. You were persistent. You were passionate. And you never stop chasing that dream or that vision in your head, that feeling in your heart. And that is why the Passion and Persistence podcast is here today. And I don't aim for this podcast to be famous. I don't need it to be listened to by 1 billion people. I'm here to touch even just one soul with my story, with my inspiration, with other people's stories, with their inspiration, to remind you that we are all the same. We're all in this world to learn, to create, to connect, to inspire, to motivate. And I'm here tonight to tell you that I believe in you. And I will always support you in your dream, in your vision, because it's possible. It's not going to be easy. I will not sugarcoat that. I'm still going through it, you guys. I'm still learning, still trying to grow. It has not been easy. I'm exhausted tonight. It's a Monday night. I have a million things to get done on my to-do list. I almost fell asleep putting my son to bed, but I pushed myself out of that bed to jump on here in front of the screen and record the 5th episode of the Passion and Persistence podcast, to let you know that I'm here for you. And there will be other guests on the future that are going to be here for you by telling their story, sharing their inspiration, sharing their mission, whatever questions you may have about this journey, whether it be about business, spirituality, personal growth, mind development, mind hacking, all those things. I and the guests moving forward and the guests that we've had in the past are all here to help you with that. And I want you to always remember that. So with that being said, you guys, I am so proud of you, and I'm so thankful that you took the time to listen to this episode of the Passion and Persistence podcast. I'm your host, Elaina Mitchell, signing off from St. Petersburg, Florida. Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Passion and Persistence. I'm your host, Elaina Mitchell, and I'd like to personally invite you to subscribe to this podcast for future inspiration, motivation, and business tips and tricks. Until next time, go out and chase your passion persistently.